The night changed everything before I even realized it was happening. Because sometimes the most powerful moments arrive quietly, wrapped in exhaustion, fear, and a hope we are almost too afraid to touch. I was standing at the edge of my own loneliness, convinced that love had already passed me by, when she looked at me with eyes full of vulnerability and courage, and asked something that would test every wall I had built around my heart. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and love that grows slowly through pain and patience, take a moment right now to like this video, comment your thoughts, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel because stories like this remind us that broken people can still find something beautiful. My name is Matthew Carter, and this happened in the United States, in a quiet corner of Ohio where winters feel long and hearts often feel even colder. I was 38, working late nights at a small manufacturing firm outside Columbus, trying to rebuild a life that had collapsed after a divorce that left me emotionally hollow. I had loved once with everything I had, and when it ended, it felt like the world had quietly moved on without me. Days blurred together between work, microwave dinners, and the dull ache of coming home to an empty apartment where silence echoed louder than any argument ever had. That was when Sarah Mitchell entered my life, not with fireworks or dramatic timing, but with a calm presence that felt unfamiliar and strangely comforting. She worked in the accounting department, always dressed simply, always focused, carrying a quiet strength that drew people in without trying. There was sadness in her eyes, too, the kind you only recognize when you have lived with it yourself. She had lost her husband to a sudden illness 3 years earlier and was raising her young nephew after her sister's passing. Life had not been gentle with her, yet she moved through each day with grace and patience that humbled me. We started talking during late evenings when the office emptied out, and the hum of fluorescent lights became the only witness to our conversations. There was no flirting, no rushed emotions, just two tired souls sharing stories about long days and longer nights. I learned about her love for old churches, Sunday mornings filled with hymns, and how faith had been the only thing that carried her through unbearable loss. She learned about my failed marriage, the guilt I carried, and the fear that I might never be able to open my heart again. As weeks turned into months, our friendship deepened into something warmer, something that made the emptiness inside me feel less permanent. Yet fear stood between us like an invisible wall. I told myself she deserved someone whole, not a man still haunted by his past. She never pressured me, never asked for more than I could give, and somehow that made my feelings for her even stronger. One evening in early spring, after a long charity event we had volunteered for together in downtown Columbus, we found ourselves sitting quietly in the parking lot as the city lights flickered in the distance. The night air was cool, and exhaustion hung between us. That was when she looked at me with a mixture of vulnerability and resolve, and without words spoken aloud, asked if I could refuse her presence, her closeness, her hope, just for that night. The weight of her unspoken request pressed heavily on my chest. Inside me, a storm raged. Part of me wanted to retreat, to protect myself from the possibility of loss all over again. Another part knew that turning away would mean losing something rare and real. I realized in that moment that love does not always arrive with certainty. Sometimes it arrives with fear, asking you to trust anyway. I chose honesty, not just with her, but with myself. I acknowledged silently that my heart had already chosen her long before that night. Loving her had happened in the small moments, in shared silences, in mutual understanding. I understood then that refusing her would mean refusing the love that had already taken root inside me. That realization terrified me, yet it also felt like coming home after a long, painful journey. From that night forward, our relationship did not magically become easy. Life tested us in ways we did not expect. Her nephew fell ill and required weeks of hospital visits. My job faced layoffs, and financial uncertainty crept back into my life. Old fears resurfaced, whispering that happiness was temporary and loss was inevitable. There were moments when I almost pulled away, convinced I was not strong enough for the future she deserved. What changed everything was the way she stood beside me through every challenge without demanding perfection. She reminded me through her actions that love was not about grand gestures, but about showing up when it mattered. I found myself praying again, something I had abandoned after my divorce, asking God not for guarantees, but for courage. Months later, on a quiet Sunday morning, We sat together in a small church on the outskirts of town. Sunlight streamed through stained glass windows, painting the pews in soft colors. In that peaceful moment, I felt a sense of clarity I had not known in years. I realized that love had healed parts of me I thought were permanently broken. Not because pain disappeared, but because it no longer defined me. As the seasons changed, so did we. Laughter returned to my life. Hope became something I carried with me, not something I feared losing. Sarah taught me that love does not demand perfection, only honesty and commitment. I learned that opening my heart again was not a weakness, but an act of faith. If you have ever been afraid to love again, afraid to trust after heartbreak, remember this story. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is say yes to love when everything inside you is afraid. Before the ending, take a moment to comment below and share where you are watching from, or what part of this story resonated with you the most. Your words might encourage someone else who is struggling silently. Today, as I look back on that night, I understand that love had already chosen me long before I chose it. It waited patiently while I wrestled with fear, and when I was finally ready, it welcomed me with open arms. If this story touched your heart even a little, please like the video, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps keep stories of faith, love, and second chances alive. Because sometimes, all it takes is one brave moment to change a life forever.